Hi guys, and welcome to my review for the Tangzu Wan'er X Audione. This is a collaboration with Audione, which is a store. The nice thing about this particular Wan'er is that it's in the jade green color, and that's why it's called actually the Jade Dragon. Anyway, um, I've had the Wan'er 2 for quite a while, and I hadn't reviewed it. Um, my fault, my apologies. So I decided to, let's join now the Wan'er 2 with the Jade Dragon. But before delving into these, let's just quickly run through the original Wan'er, which is what I have on top here. This is the original Wan'er. We then also had a blue version, we had the studio version, we had the Shangguan version, and we had the Shangguan Jade Green version. The reason why these three are together and these two are then together at that side is because there is a similar tuning between these three, which differs slightly from the tuning of those two. And to cut a long story short, the Wan'er 2 not only has improved on the driver, but it's gone and fetched inspiration on both of the tunings that were used previously in the original Wan'er. The original Wan'er was known for being an IM that joined the likes of the Moondrop 2 and the 7Hz 0 in an attempt to bring a more mature sounding IEM to the budget market, to the under $20 budget market. And the reality was that that attempt was well achieved. I mean, it had the original one. He had a nice clean bass. It didn't bleed into the mids, vocals, so mids and upper mids were the star of the show. There was an overall tuning which was a little bit more on the organic, warmer type of sound. Although, extension was decent enough. The driver used in the original Wan'er was a PET driver. Also on the Wan'er 2, it's still a PET driver, but a latest version of this driver. It's a newer driver, an improvement of the original, as far as I was able to ascertain. Anyway, as I was saying, the original Wan'er had a nice tuning. There was really not much that could be pointed, other than that, when you looked at the graph, you wouldn't think that the area of 3, 4, 5 would be maybe as dark sounding as it is on the one hand, and also on the other hand that it wouldn't scale as well as it doesn't scale. It scales decently, I can say, when I take into account of the price, but it doesn't scale in a manner where it keeps things, let's say, the more ideal. It reaches a point where it actually starts shouting slightly. Anyway, that's nitpicks, and again, I must keep in mind that this is a sub $20 IM. The subsequent version, the studio edition and the Shangguan, what they tried to do was they shifted the Pina peak slightly, taking it closer to, so blue, green, my apologies, I'm just looking here at the actual graphs. Exactly, it shifted the Pina peak to around 3 kilohertz as opposed to 2.5 that it was on the original Wan'er, and gave it a little bit more energy. What that ultimately enabled was the sound to be a little bit more detailed at lower volumes, so maybe not as dark sounding as some people complained. Although, truth be told, you could, with the right tip and the right source, mitigate somewhat that darkness. Although personally I never found it to be dark. I found the sound of the Wan'er to always be a very organic type of sound. That's how I looked, and I've always looked at the Wan'er as a very organic type of sound, which tried to bring some emotion that perhaps on the offerings from 7Hz and the offerings from Moondrop, that emotion was lacking, because the bass on those two IEMs was perhaps a little bit overly thin by comparison to the Wan'er. So the Wan'er of those three was definitely the one that had the most bass presentation. That doesn't mean, of course, that it's a bass monster, but it had the most bass presence. Um, the Jade, the Shangguan Jade edition, what it did as compared to the rest of the rest of the Wan'ers, the original Wan'ers, was basically maintain that same sort of sound, especially the sound of the blue and of the original, because the tuning is similar to these two and not to those two. But it further dipped the sound a little bit more than that 5 to 8 kilohertz area. And what ultimately I think that did, at least in my opinion, is that it made that balance that was struck between the extremes of the frequencies better. I know this might sound a little bit weird if I'm saying that there wasn't a lot of detail to start with. How can, if something has got less detail, it's a difficult one to explain. It's just that the overall balance on the jade green somehow seems better than definitely better than the balance in the studio edition and the Shangguan, but it just seems slightly better than in the blue and the Wan'er. But this is just, guys, trust me, this is just nitpicks, nothing. The truth is this: you take any one of these three, so the jade green, the blue, or the original OG, and you put them in your ears with the same tip, with the same source, with the same thing, and you will be truly hard pressed to find a difference which is significant. You will pick up on that difference with the studio edition and the Shangguan, but on these three, you'll be truly hard pressed to find the difference. Now, on to the Wan'er 2, which is what we want to talk about. The Wan'er 2 takes that same PET driver, or takes an improvement of that same PET driver. It goes and fetches, like I said, the good and the good of both the previous tunings of the Wan'er, of the original Wan'er, and gives us an IEM that now has got that energy that we found in the studio edition, in terms of the pin again in the studio edition and the Shangguan, but it brings it earlier. So instead of peaking at 3 kilohertz, it peaks it now at around 2.4. So the original Wan'er, the blue edition of the Wan'er, and the jade green edition of the Wan'er peak at around 2.5. These ones peak at around 3, and these ones now peak at around 2.35, 2.4. And then it's again drops off. The other difference that it has to the original Wan'er is that there's significantly more detail up top. So past 10K, there's more energy. What that then ultimately gives us is a IM which has that same organic feel of the original. Yes, that same old school organic feel of the original, but now with a significantly larger soundstage, so more openness in the sound, and that's very evident from the first listen of the IM. The moment I stuck it in my ears, it was very evident. That openness of the sound somehow also helps clean up the bass, so the bass sounds a little bit more incisive, a little bit more precise. It helps with resolution. So technically, in terms of detail retrieval, soundstage, and imaging, the Wan'er 2 is a definite improvement over the original. In terms of bass, the bass in itself is very similar, although you notice that it's a little bit more incisive and cleaner here. As for the mids, I would say that the mids between the Wan'er 2 and the original, the blue and the jade, they are very equal, very similar, but because we then have a better complement in the highs on the Wan'er 2, they open up the mids and make female vocals especially come through in a better manner, in a more open manner, in a more detailed manner, in a more detailed fashion. The studio edition in Shangguan do have a lot of that openness that we found here, but they don't scale, I would say, in the most ideal of manners. Okay, I've found that the studio and the Shangguan, because of that emphasis that was given to that 3 kilohertz area, when you push the volume, they seem to just be a little bit too forward for my liking. So overall, just giving a more definite conclusion to this whole comparison here, the One Year 2 is definitely an improvement over the original One Year. There's better detail in terms of the technical aspect of things. Timbre and tonality on both was never a real issue. It's in the technical departments with regards to detailed retrieval, micro detailing, soundstage and imaging, that there's a definite upgrade on the One Year 2 as compared to the original. Now, having said all that, is it worthwhile upgrading if you've got the one and you want out the other? Well, I would say it's worthwhile upgrading if and only if you are really truly lacking a little bit of detail up top, and you don't want to EQ the original one and you want to keep things as they are standard, then I would say yes, then definitely it's worthwhile getting the new One Year 2. If you're in the market for buying one or the other, and some of the original versions are still available out there on AliExpress, I would definitely say go for the new one without question. The new one also has, or brings with it, the Sankai whiteboard tips, and I have to say that I had a little bit of a mixed emotion about it. I've always preferred the One Year either with the KB Aero 7s like I have here, or then with these let's shirt type of tips like I've got here, or even with the whiteboards from BGVP. I've always found that especially the BGVP whiteboards and the KB ears were the ones that really brought out the best. The whiteboards on the original One Years, what they enabled, especially in these three versions here, it enabled them to have a little bit more soundstage and improve the imaging, and even perhaps maybe a little bit more micro detailing. But the main thing was it controlled the bass, something that with the Sankai tips, and I mean, I can see the usage of the Sankai tips, I can understand, but in the One Year 2 I don't think the Sankai tips are really bringing out the best. The Sankai tips have a tendency of lowering the bass, or of softening up the bass, and it's down to a question of the outside here section of the tip being overly soft as compared to the KB ears or as compared to the BGVPs. And one thing is you measuring it and you look at the measurement and it seems like it's all the same, or basically the same. Another thing is when you actually ram it into your ear, and your ear canal, or you forces this to collapse, and how this collapses is definitely going to change how the bass comes across. So I would personally suggest that you try your tips. If you have some KB ears 07s or the BGVP whiteboards, try them. If you also have the Venus Velvet, give the Venus Velvet a try as well. I enjoyed them. And the Sankais, the whiteboards, okay, fine. As for the One Year 2, just quickly let me show you. That's a very nice looking faceplate there. Okay, try to focus here. Sometime today would be nice. No, you don't want to focus. There we go. That's a nice looking IM. That's the black version. This is the white version, and the green version, the Jade Dragon as it's known. The nice thing about it is that the actual faceplate, it's 3D. It's got like a 3D effect for the dragon. So it's not just a print. It's got the texture to it. Very nice. I mean, this is a really, really nice IM in terms of its overall look. Yes, okay, it's not a resin shell, it's a plastic shell, but it's a nice quality resin shell. Or even the original One Years were already a good quality plastic shell, and the actual design of the faceplates did make them look more premium than what they are in fact. Anyway, guys, just quick worth mentioning is the JADE edition, because it's a special edition of the One Year 2. It brings this case, okay, the aforementioned tips, the Sankai tips, and the cable is perhaps out of the accessories the only thing that I really think could have been a little bit more thought out. Okay, fair enough, we are talking $25, $26, so we can't really complain, and the reality is, yes, we can't complain. We're getting decent tips, we're getting a carrying case, we're getting a cable which is a little bit on the weaker side, but the overall package is decent for the money. Okay, so I guess we can't really complain too much. I'll show you now quickly the graphs and we'll wrap it up. Okay, so here we go with the graphs for the 1 year 2. Let me just quickly take out all of them except for this one. This is the original graph of the 1 year. And as you can see, it had that nice gliding style of bass, no bleed into the mids, so nice clean mids. The pin again was around peaking at 2.5 like I mentioned, and by looking at everything on the graph you wouldn't think that this area would be in any way a problem area, in both manners, which is that it would be overly dark, especially because when you look at the 100 hertz point and you then compare it to where it corresponds, there's loads of energy there. It's below the corresponding point in the mid is below 2 kilohertz, which is usually my ideal, so you would think that there's loads of information, and there is. It's a nice open sound, but it's a darker sounding IEM. It's warmer in its tonality. It's got that old school vibe. Comparing it with the blue, same thing basically. I mean, you can't really perceive that, trust me. Comparing it to the JADE, the Shangguan JADE green version, there we go. There, yes, I did notice a little bit of that difference that I mentioned in this area here between 4 and 8, and what it just made it sound like was, although it sounded a little bit darker, it somehow just made it sound more coherent, more balanced out. I can't really explain, but it just sounds slightly better, the Shangguan JADE Jane Greedy edition of the 1 year of the original 1 year. Anyway, the then studio edition and the Shangguan, they, as you can see, have basically the same bass, but then they peak later. They give a little bit more detail. Yes, there's more upper mids, more information, especially lower volumes. There seems to be also a little bit extra more detail up top. But in terms of the scaling, I don't think scale as well as the original 1 year, and so they kind of have a tendency of shouting slightly. Enter now the 1 year 2. And the 1 year 2, actually, let me just quickly change the color here of the 1 year 2 to something that can be seen a little bit better. I'm going to make it red. Okay, the 1 year 2, as you can see, it shifts that peak of the peanut. So the original one was peaking at 2.5. The studio version of the original 1 year was peaking at 3. And now the 1 year 2 now peaks at about 2.35, 2.4 exactly. What does that then mean? It means that it still maintains a nice amount of detail. It doesn't sound as well. It's definitely not as lacking in detail as you would think, especially with all the amount of the information that it's got past 10K. But what I'm trying to basically say is, when you looked at the original graph, okay, which is what I just placed in black, and you look at the current graph, you would not think that there would be such a disparity in terms of sound from one IEM to the other, or that the original in black would sound so comparatively dark to the current 1 year 2. The 1 year 2 not only sounds more open in the mids, upper mids and trebles, so more vocal presence, but it also sounds significantly more detailed up top. That soundstage is bigger, everything is bigger. Yes, you could argue that perhaps some of this extra information may make it sound slightly more colored, maybe less correct audiophile wise, but guys, this is $20, okay, $25. We want an IEM that does things decently, that sounds good, so we can't start wanting to be so nitpicky and so demanding. It's fine, trust me, it is either one of them is fine, but the newer version, let me just remove the original. The newer version, it's ticking the right boxes, which was maintaining the same sort of bass that doesn't bleed into the mid, so vocals are not affected. Timbre and tonality is as good as the original. It's more detailed than the original. It scales better than the original. And in terms of soundstage and imaging, it is also, and detailed retrieval, it's better than, there's a more resolution, it's better than the original. Is it day and night differences between the one and the other? No, it's not day and night differences, but it's differences which are enough for you to pick up on them. And if you are wanting something which is definitely more detailed, then the 1 year 2 is the way to go. If you have an option of picking up the Jade Dragon, which is what I'm just placing now there. I would say go for the Jade Dragon. It sounds the same as the other two, as the white or the black version of the 1 year 2. It sounds the same. There's no difference in terms of the tuning, as you can see, but it just looks way cooler, in my opinion, with that faceplate that has that texture to it of the dragon and so on. So I would personally, I would go for that one. And it's not much more expensive. I mean, the normal 1 year 2 I think is $22. The Jade, you can pick it up for $25, $26. So it's not a day and night difference in terms of money. And that's it, guys. If there's anything that you want me to clarify further, please let me know, and I'll do my best to answer as quickly as possible. You take care now. Bye bye.